Hi everyone, welcome back to the Palette of the Past. The Bible features several women whose actions epitomize wickedness and moral corruption. Through deceit, treachery, and ruthless ambition, these women serve as cautionary tales, demonstrating the destructive consequences of ethical corruption and the profound impact of their malevolent deeds on those around them. Today, we will discuss three of the most wicked women in the Bible, whose actions have become synonymous with deceit and moral corruption. Let's begin. Number 1. Jezebel. Jezebel was the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians. She married Ahab, king of Israel, and brought with her the worship of Baal, a Canaanite deity, and Asherah, a goddess. Ahab, influenced by Jezebel, built a temple and an altar for Baal in Samaria, and made an Asherah pole, provoking the anger of Yahweh, the God of Israel. Jezebel's commitment to Baal worship included actively persecuting and killing the prophets of Yahweh. Obadiah, a devout believer in Yahweh, hid 100 prophets in 2 caves, providing them with food and water to save them from Jezebel's massacre. The prophet Elijah challenged Jezebel's prophets of Baal to a contest on Mount Carmel, to prove who was the true God. After Yahweh answered Elijah's prayer with fire from heaven, Elijah had the prophets of Baal killed. Jezebel, furious about the defeat and the slaughter of her prophets, sent a messenger to Elijah, vowing to kill him. Elijah fled for his life to the wilderness. One of the most infamous episodes involving Jezebel is the murder of Naboth, as recounted in 1 Kings 21. Naboth owned a vineyard adjacent to King Ahab's palace, which Ahab desired for himself. But Naboth refused to sell it, as it was his ancestral inheritance. Jezebel devised a wicked scheme to have him falsely accused of blasphemy and then stoned to death. She orchestrated this plot to seize Naboth's vineyard for Ahab, demonstrating her ruthlessness and disregard for justice. Jezebel's reign of terror eventually came to an end with the rise of Jehu, who was anointed king of Israel by divine command. Elijah prophesied that Ahab's dynasty would be destroyed and that dogs would devour Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel as a punishment for her evil deeds. Years later, Jehu, anointed as king by the prophet Elisha's order, led a revolt against Joram, Ahab's son, and Jezebel. When Jehu entered Jezreel, Jezebel, adorned in makeup and royal attire, confronted him from a window. Jehu ordered her eunuchs to throw her down. She was trampled by horses and her body was eaten by dogs, leaving only her skull, feet, and hands, thus fulfilling Elijah's prophecy. Jezebel's legacy serves as a cautionary tale of the dangers of idolatry, persecution of the faithful, and abuse of power. Her name is often used to describe women who embody similar traits. Her actions brought devastation upon herself and her family, ultimately leading to her ignominious end and the downfall of her dynasty. Number 2. Herodias. Herodias was initially married to Herod Philip, but she left him to marry his brother, Herod Antipas, who was tetrarch of Galilee and Perea. This marriage was condemned by John the Baptist as being unlawful according to Jewish law because she married her husband's brother. John's public denouncement of her marriage deeply angered Herodias. She held a grudge against John for his criticism and wanted him dead, but Herod Antipas, despite imprisoning John, respected him as a holy man and protected him from harm. Herodias saw an opportunity to have John executed during Herod Antipas's birthday celebration. Her daughter, Salome, danced for the king and his guests, pleasing Herod Antipas greatly. In his enthusiasm, Herod Antipas made a rash promise to Salome, offering her anything she desired, up to half his kingdom. Prompted by her mother, Salome asked for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Though distressed, Herod, bound by his oath and not wanting to lose face before his guests, ordered John's execution. John was beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought on a platter to Salome, who then gave it to her mother, Herodias. According to historical sources, Herodias's ambition and machinations eventually led to the downfall of Herod Antipas. They were both exiled to Gaul by the Roman Emperor Caligula. Herodias is remembered as a manipulative and vengeful figure in the New Testament. Her willingness to use her daughter to achieve her ends and her role in the unjust execution of John the Baptist have made her a symbol of vindictiveness and moral corruption. Her story serves as a cautionary tale about the destructive power of grudges and the lengths to which some will go to silence voices of truth and righteousness. Number 3. Athaliah. Athaliah was a significant figure in ancient Judean history, known for her controversial reign as Queen of Judah. The story of Athaliah can be found primarily in the Old Testament, particularly in the books of 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles. Athaliah, the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel, rose to power after her parents' tragic deaths. Athaliah, whose name signifies being afflicted by God, ascended to the throne of Judah. She ruled in Judah around 841 to 835 BC. She defiled the house of God and became the sole queen to occupy David's throne in biblical history. Athaliah's reign indeed represents a dark chapter in Judean history, marked by political turmoil, violence, and religious deviation. Her quest for power and promotion of idolatry brought great suffering to the people of Judah and led them away from their faith in Yahweh. Athaliah married Jehoram, who was the son of Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah. The marriage between Athaliah and Jehoram was a political alliance between the royal families of Israel and Judah. It was not uncommon for royal marriages to be arranged as a means of forming alliances and strengthening political ties between kingdoms. In this case, the marriage likely served to solidify a bond between the two kingdoms, despite their historical differences and occasional conflicts. 2 Kings chapter 8, verse 18. And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. This verse describes Jehoram, the king of Judah, and his actions during his reign. It states that Jehoram followed the ways of the kings of Israel, particularly the practices of the house of Ahab. Jehoram's marriage to Athaliah, the daughter of Ahab, not only solidified a connection between the royal families of Israel and Judah, but also introduced the influence of Ahab's house into Judah's leadership. Athaliah's background and the practices associated with her family, including idol worship and corruption, likely had a significant impact on Jehoram's reign and decision-making. The verse concludes by stating that Jehoram did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. This indicates that Jehoram's actions, influenced by his marriage to Athaliah and his alignment with the practices of the house of Ahab, were contrary to the will of God as understood by the standards of the Israelite faith. It suggests that Jehoram's reign was characterized by disobedience to God's commandments and moral decay, leading to spiritual and moral decline within the kingdom of Judah. After her husband, King Jehoram, died, Athaliah wanted to stay in power. When her son Ahaziah became the king of Judah, she acted as the de facto ruler of Judah. As the queen mother, Athaliah held a lot of power and could make important decisions. She used her position to make sure she stayed in control and could do what she wanted in the kingdom. This time in Judah was marked by Athaliah's efforts to keep her power strong and her influence over the kingdom intact. After becoming king, Ahaziah aligned himself with King Joram of Israel, who was his uncle through his mother Athaliah. Together they engaged in a military campaign against Hazael, the king of Aram. During the battle, Ahaziah was wounded by Jehu, a commander in the Israelite army, who had been anointed by the prophet Elisha to become the next king of Israel. Ahaziah fled to Megiddo to seek medical attention. However, he eventually died from his wounds in Megiddo. Ahaziah's death marked the end of his brief reign as king of Judah and paved the way for the ascension of his mother Athaliah to power, as she sought to maintain control over the kingdom after his demise. 2 Kings chapter 11, verses 1 to 3. Now when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal family. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash the son of Ahaziah and stole him away from among the king's sons who were being put to death, and she put him and his nurse in a bedroom. Thus they hid him from Athaliah, so that he was not put to death. And he remained with her 6 years, hidden in the house of the Lord, while Athaliah reigned over the land. This passage illustrates Athaliah's ruthless ambition to secure power for herself. After Ahaziah's death, she moved quickly to eliminate any potential threats to her reign by ordering the execution of all the royal heirs, including her own grandchildren. But Ahaziah's sister, Jehosheba, saved one of the grandsons, Joash, and kept him safe. Joash stayed hidden for 6 years while Athaliah ruled the land. Athaliah's reign was a dark period in Judean history, characterized by political intrigue, bloodshed, moral corruption, and religious apostasy. Her rise to power was marked by ruthless actions to eliminate any potential threats to her rule. She ordered the execution of all potential heirs to the throne, including her own grandchildren, in a bid to consolidate her power. This act of violence and disregard for the lives of her own family members underscored the extent of her tyranny. Athaliah promoted the worship of Baal and other foreign gods throughout Judah. Baal worship involved rituals and practices that were contrary to the teachings of Yahweh, the God of Israel. Athaliah's promotion of idolatry corrupted the religious practices of Judah. The worship of Baal and other foreign deities involved rituals that often included sacrifices, ceremonies, and rites that were not in alignment with the laws and commandments of Yahweh. This departure from authentic worship led to spiritual decay and moral decline within the kingdom. Athaliah's support for idolatry also reflected the influence of foreign cultures and ideologies within Judah. Baal worship was often associated with neighboring nations and their religious traditions, highlighting Athaliah's willingness to adopt and promote practices that were contrary to the unique identity and beliefs of Judah as a nation chosen by Yahweh. Athaliah's reign ended dramatically when her grandson Joash, the son of Ahaziah, was rescued and hidden by his aunt Jehosheba. Joash remained concealed for some time, safe from Athaliah's grasp. After 6 years of hiding Joash, Jehoiada, the high priest of Judah who had been preserving Joash, orchestrated a plan to reveal him to the people and to crown him as the rightful king of Judah. Jehoiada gathered the captains of hundreds, the Levites, and the heads of the families of Israel to the temple of Jerusalem. There he made a covenant with them and showed them Joash, the son of Ahaziah. 2 Kings chapter 11, verses 12-14. Then he brought out the king's son and put the crown on him and gave him the testimony. And they made him king and anointed him. And they clapped their hands and said, "Long live the king." When Athaliah heard the noise of the guard and of the people, she came to the people in the temple of the Lord. When she looked, there was the king standing by the pillar, as was the custom, and the leaders and the trumpeters were by the king. All the people of the land rejoiced and blew trumpets. Athaliah tore her clothes and cried out, "Treason! Treason!" Thus, a coronation ceremony was held, and Joash was anointed and crowned as the king of Judah. The people rejoiced and proclaimed, "Long live the king." Athaliah, upon hearing the commotion, came to the temple and witnessed the coronation. She tore her clothes in dismay, realizing that her reign was over. Subsequently, Jehoiada ordered Athaliah's execution, thus putting an end to her tyrannical rule. 2 Kings chapter 11, verse 16. So they seized her as she reached the place where the horses enter the palace grounds, and there she was put to death. This verse depicts the moment when Athaliah was seized and subsequently executed. With Joash crowned as king, the legitimate line of kingship was restored in Judah, and Athaliah's usurpation was brought to an end. This marked a significant turning point in the history of Judah, restoring rightful governance and bringing stability to the kingdom. Athaliah's downfall signifies a pivotal moment in Judah's history. Her removal from power allowed for the restoration of true worship and the purging of foreign influences from the kingdom. In conclusion, these women, through their infamous deeds, serve as cautionary figures in biblical narratives. By examining their actions, we gain insights into the complexities of human nature and the importance of upholding righteousness in the face of temptation and ambition. And that concludes today's episode. We sincerely appreciate your presence. If you enjoyed our content, please consider hitting the like button, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to our channel. Thank you for your support.